Good afternoon, everybody. We're back on board with Talking Tour. We're running a couple of minutes late because our guest, Michael Rogers, he's been held up. He's got some responsibilities with the Lead Out Trek team. So I've pulled somebody in off the bench to have a chat to us for a little while before Mick Rogers gets here. He's the guy who won this race the very first year, way back in 1999. He won it in 2001. He was going to relax and have a bite to eat and have a drink. He's won Paris-Roubaix. He's had the yellow jersey at the Tour de France. He's won an Olympic Games gold medal. And he's the race director, and he's South Australia's very own. Put your hands together for Stuart O'Grady.
No escaping around here, is there?
I bet you didn't expect that today.
The race?
No, getting up here.
No, I was supposed to be in a meeting in 5 minutes, but we got 5 minutes.
Okay, let's talk about this bike race. Let's start with some of the guests that you managed to get here, actually. We had Mark Cavendish here last night, along with Mark Renshaw. Who was here? Was that one of the best you've seen?
I hope so. He's come from a long way away. No, look, it's fantastic to, reached out to Cav. I knew he was freshly retired. Been following on Instagram and kind of get tired just watching his travels. But yeah, I knew we needed a big star for the 25th party. Did my best to try and get Pogačar here. Didn't quite work out. Went after Evenepoel and then he ran into a car. So yeah, I don't want to say it out loud, but Cav was third best.
Well, actually, yesterday, Mark Renshaw came with him. Mark Renshaw wasn't scheduled to be up here on stage. And, I normally do the introduction, bring them up, but they both just walked up here and sat down. I couldn't kick Mark Renshaw off. He was leading him out even in this role. Yeah,
well, there's a bit of a bromance there, that's for sure. But, look, there's some fantastic relationships. You tend to spend a lot of the time, each season on the road away with teammates. Once you room together with someone, it's almost like a little brotherhood. You spend more time with that person than your own wife and your own family. So, you go through the goods and the bads. You support each other, obviously, when you win, but you really support each other when you're not winning. There's a lot of great friendships. Bernie Eisel, Mick Rogers, Simon Clark. Who else we got? Greipel. Richie, Cadell, even riding together with the Australian team at Olympics and Com Games, you kind of create relationships which don't dissolve.
You mentioned Andre Greipel. Given that he's won more stages than anybody else in this race with 18, and it's the 25th anniversary, and how successful he was changed the course design, was it really important for you to have him here this year?
Yeah, absolutely. Andre was the number one on the list. He negotiated well, but we got him here. So, yeah, look, we couldn't have the guy that's won the most stages not be present. So Andre's, again, you retire and then you're telling your wife and kids you're flying away for a couple of weeks. And I'm pretty sure his wife would be back in Germany going, I thought we'd spoken about this. You're supposed to be home. But look, the cycling world is always there to, give you a big welcome. And it's great to see so many people out acknowledging these champions.
And it seems like he's really enjoyed his time here, Andre Greipel, because it was a big launching pad for his career. It was one of the first opportunities where he was the team leader.
Yeah, Andre the Giant, he'd come down, he'd kill us all in January, which, we're going, mate, I've been training my ass off all December and January, and he'd still just smoke everyone. But yeah, I guess, really it helped catapult his career and took that confidence to Europe, and he won.
You mentioned a couple of people that you've been trying to get down to this race. How much of your time is spent during the year as the race director trying to attract marquee stars to the event?
Yeah, look, it's a tricky one. Like we saw with Pogačar, when you're winning in the Giro in May, you're winning the Tour de France in July, you're then continuing on till the World Championships in September, October. Their season has been so intense, they need a break. I've spent 18 months talking to the manager of Tadej, and if he hadn't won the Worlds, we probably would have got him. But he did win the Worlds, and then he wants to win every race he starts. And he wasn't confident that he'd come down here and win. So he'd prefer not to race. So we're working on it.
Well, you're going to have to sell it to him because so far in Tadej Pogacar's career, in all the tours that he's ridden, his worst result ever is here. It was his first ever World Tour race. It was in 2019, and he finished a miserable 13th.
Yeah, we need him back.
We saw a young guy today. The guy that finished 4th today, he wears the white jersey, is the best young rider. He's the youngest ever rider in this race. He turned 18 in September. He won back-to-back junior world titles in mountain bike. As a bottom age under 19, he won the World Road Race Championship. And when he went across the finish line, I thought, 4th, he'll be happy with that, first-year pro. He was disappointed.
The youth, hey? Yeah, look, I think a lot of these guys think they're already Tadej Pogacar. And it's easy to win, but it's definitely not easy to win. And when you see the amount of wins that Remco, Tadej, Phillips, and who else is there? You know, these guys suck up most of the big wins. So they don't leave much for the other guys to snap up, and this is a great opportunity for other riders to win World Tour stages.
All right, I've got good news for you. Almost off the hook. Wait there. Don't keep coming. Wait there. We're going to do a proper introduction. Just hold tight. Before we bring him up, I'm going to get you to talk about him and his win in 2002, because this is a race that has launched a lot of careers. And for our next guest, Michael Rogers, his win here in 2002 was a big sign of things to come.
Oh, look, Mick's an absolute legend. 3-time world champion. That says enough, doesn't it? You can't get any better than that. So 3 times individual time trial world champion. One of the true gentlemen of the sport. One of the nicest guys I've ever come across in Australian cycling and probably world cycling. So Mick, you know, he's not on management of Little Trek for any no reason, and worked with the UCI, an fantastic ambassador for sport, but also for Australian sport.
Okay, we're going to let you go with one last question. Who wins overall by the close of business on Sunday?
Yeah, no, that's not fair. I think there'd probably be a few sports accounts that might be conflict of interest. I'm not really sure. I was kind of putting my money on Stevie Williams, but then saw him struggling a bit today. I think we're going to have a new surprise winner. Oscar Onley was the first man to beat Richie Port up Wollonga for years. So let's I don't know, Oscar Onley.
The guy that won today, who was the race leader, he's in his second World Tour team, but he started life as a triathlete. He finished 9th at the Junior World Triathlon Championships, and then his 3rd ever race was the Spanish National Championships, the under-23s, and he won by 2 minutes, and he got signed by Astana straight away. He rode his first Tour de France really nervous with his bike handling skills down the back of the peloton. This guy's going to get underestimated by a lot of people. I think he's going to be hard to beat.
All right, we'll go for him.
Put your hands together for Stuart O'Grady.
Thank you.
Awesome.
A pretty good get in off the bench. So our next guest is our main guest for today. As you heard, he won this race in 2002 when he was riding as part of the national team. But he's done a lot of other things as well. As Stewie mentioned, he's been the 3-time world time trial champion. He's been the winner of the Tour of Belgium. He's been the winner of the Tour de Deutschland. In 2014, he won 2 stages at the Giro d'Italia. He also won a stage at the Tour de France. He's finished top 10 at the Giro. He's finished top 10 at the Tour de France. But the most significant role he's played throughout his career has been as a super domestique. And he was one of the guys that led Bradley Wiggins to success at the Tour de France in 2012. He's one of the greats of Australian cycling. He doesn't get enough recognition, so I want you to make him feel welcome. Michael Rogers. Great to have you with us, Mick. We're going to start with 2002. How big in your career was that to win this race in 2002?
Oh, it was a career-defining race for me. I was recounting the story actually to my team this morning because yesterday's stage was in the same area, and we have not too many of our current riders were born yet when I was winning stages here and winning the overall race here in Tanunda. But that was certainly a career-defining moment and really launched my career and opened the doors for so many great teams and so many great experiences in my 16-year career.
Okay, what was the biggest moment in that victory? The moment that everybody remembers?
I used up all my luck of a whole lifetime in that millisecond, you know. I mean, when you look back at the images on YouTube, and I mean, what are the chances that in that meter where my bike came to a halt and I very frustratedly threw my bike into the ditch, and a bike exactly the same, that of a fan sitting on the side of the road, just comes out the side of the picture, and I jump on it, the same pedals, the same brand, the same make. I mean, what are the chances?
And the same size.
The same size. I mean, the only thing that we had to remove from the bike was the saddlebag.
With the spares. So if you haven't seen the images, Mick was in the leader's jersey, and then Brian O'Grady, Stuart's dad, was on one of the motorbikes, and he caused the crash, didn't he?
In all honesty, it was we were both, I think, the cause, because the course had just broken. I'd attacked. It was on Menglers Hill. The bunch had broke, and the gap was still relatively close. So I was on the left-hand side, and I looked over my right shoulder to see the distance to the chasers. And at exactly the same time, Brian, who was on the right-hand side of the road, he looked over his left shoulder, and we've both drifted and collided.
And you came together. So your bike was done with.
Yes.
It was a Colnago. What pedals did you have?
Shimano SPDR.
Which were really rare.
Very rare.
Most people had look or time.
Correct.
So there weren't many options for you.
No.
It was really slim. And there was a spectator on the side of the road that had that bike. His name was Adam Pyke, and Adam Pyke is standing right over there, and he's back. Adam, come on down. The dual winner of the 2002 Santos Tour Down Under. Take a seat, Adam. You thought you were just going to go out for a casual ride on that day, didn't you?
Something like that, yeah.
Just lift the microphone up a little bit closer. So what are your memories of the moment when you saw Mick Rogers with no bike to use?
Well, we just finished a ride. A friend and I had just gone out, and we'd stopped and we'd watched the race come through, watched Mick and the group come over the top of the hill, and all we heard this almighty crunch. Mick used a few words I won't repeat here on the day, but through the bike, and at that stage I looked at it, and I'd been a fan of the Mapai team that Mick was riding for a number of years. My bike was set up reasonably similarly. I knew I had the same pedals, and really nothing more than just, it's the right thing to do for another bloke to give him a shot. So just grabbed the bike from around the car and threw it at Mick, and he's looked at it and took off.
How Aussie can the answer be? Seemed like the right thing to do, to give a bloke a shot. Were you ever nervous about getting your bike back?
Yes.
Well, the team thought it was just a team bike.
bad.
I mean, just because, I mean, we had the team bikes that were in colour of the Mapai design, but every now and again, the team would get sent a black bike or something like that, right? So the mechanics just thought it was just a team bike, and
So at the end
washed
of the day,
it after the race and put it back on the roof, you know, that was it.
did it come back clean?
It seemed to come back much cleaner than when it went out, yeah. So.
Fantastic. How many times have you relived that story?
More times than I care to admit. It sort of pops up almost annually around this time of year. The story gets embellished every year from year to year.
That's what the media's for.
Yeah, I guess so.
And you've still got the bike?
It's over there in the tour village in the museum at the moment.
You're going to have to go and have a look at that later on. So over there, behind you, there's the 25 years. There's a whole bunch of famous photos. There's actually a bike there from the 1970s that was ridden by Paul Sherwin in the Tour de France. There's Adam's bike that was ridden by Mick Rogers, and it's all the way up to the modern Cervelo bike for the Visma Lisa bike team. Have you still got a Colnago?
I have one that's actually in Mapai colours. Mick's actually saw it. The last time we ran into each other was at the George Hincapie Grand Fondo in South Carolina in 2018. And yeah, I've still got it, still riding it. It's here today in my hotel, so I'll be out on it tomorrow.
Fantastic. Adam, you've made a massive contribution to the Tour Down Under. It's one of the great stories of this race. It sums up the culture of Australian riding. I thought I should give a bloke a shot. Put your hands together for Adam Pyke. And he's got the Mapai cap as well. You're going to have to get that signed by Mick, and you're going to have to get it back. Nice surprise, Mick.
Wow, thank you. Thank you. I didn't expect that. Yeah, and I will go have a look at my bike later on.
So let's go a little bit further forward after that and some of the other big parts of your career. I mentioned 2014. What a year that was when you won 3 stages in Grand Tours. The significant ones, I can't remember, the first stage I think was stage 9 of the Giro. You then won stage 20 to Zoncolan. You then won the stage in the Tour de France, the Bagnères de Luchon. And I remember that one vividly because you were with Thomas Voeckler. Yep. And he had won there twice before. And that was kind of like his hometown. And you were ruthless with him that day.
Yeah. 2014 was a bit of a special year for me. That year I was riding for Tinkoff. And we had Alberto Contador, who was just the standout favourite for the race. We had already factored in that he was going to win. Unfortunately, had a crash a couple of days before. Was required to finish his race. I think he
broke his kneecap.
Yeah,
he finished the stage with a fractured kneecap.
He broke his kneecap, and we put a lot into that Tour de France. Training camps, and we dedicated the whole year to him and to have a competitive team at the Tour de France there. And so he left the race, and all of a sudden we were a team without a leader and team without a goal, and we stepped up. That day I probably would have attacked 100 times to get into the breakaway, as is quite often the case, particularly as you get into the latter stages of the Tour de France when the GC really starts to open up. So I was fortunate enough to get into the break and had to finish the stage off. But as you said, I came up against a real tough nut, Thomas Voeckler, and obviously it wasn't in his interest to go with me to the finish because I was a lot faster, and we had quite some discussions because he wasn't contributing to the break, and I won't repeat what I said to him.
I remember apologising in commentary on air for what you said to him.
Yes, but I got the better of him and that's the thing I'd rather talk about.
Do you remember the salute? I love the salute. You did a big bow across the finish line. Had you thought about the salute beforehand?
No, I didn't. I think it, the rationale behind that was I think every male cyclist and fortunately now every female cyclist that comes from Australia grows up with the Tour de France and probably number one dreams of winning the Tour de France, and if that's not possible, it's winning a stage. And I'd been so close so many times in the previous years, and I'd finally done it.
It was huge.
And that was, I think, that was my checkout from a 15, 16-year career in professional cycling, is I'd finally achieved it. I'd ticked off everything that I needed to do in cycling, and that was it. Yeah, so it was a special moment.
Because a lot of your career was at the service of others. There's the 3 time trial world championships. You medalled in the time trial in Athens. You got a bronze medal in the individual time
Correct.
trial in Athens.
Yes.
Let's talk about the time trials then first. Your first time trial was a kind of controversial one because you originally finished second, then David Miller was disqualified for doping. What's it like to win a world title when somebody else gets disqualified?
It takes the glamour off it a little bit because it's, the memory and the photo that goes into the future of you sitting second on the podium. That moves forward into the future. But on the other side, I'm the only person in history to be presented with 2 World Championship gold medals in one day.
So how satisfying was the next year when you won and you got the rainbow jersey and the gold medal from the year before?
I was 2004. I was hungry. Finished, as you just mentioned, I finished third at the Olympic Games in Athens. I was in the hunt for the gold medal and blew it just with a couple of kilometres to go. I topped out on a mountain and didn't quite have it. So I was angry after finishing third because I really wanted that win, and I doubled down on training before the World Championships, and won heads and shoulders. And I won by a minute 30. Obviously motivated by the fact in the morning that I received the previous year's World Championships medal and jersey. So, and then 2005 was probably my most difficult of the three to win because, to win 2 is one thing, to win 3, that's the hardest thing I've ever done on a bike. Yeah.
Extraordinary to win 3 world time trial titles in a row. You're in rarefied air. Now I want to talk about Mick Rogers, the team captain. We had Mark Renshaw and Mark Cavendish up here yesterday, and one of my favourite stages that you were involved in with them at HTC, 2009, Le Grand Mot, the crosswinds. You caused it. You were the one that made the decision. Talk us through those moments where there's a big crosswind and you create the split in the Tour de France. That's hard to do.
Well, none of these things are planned. You just, I always had a knack for just having this sixth sense of when opportunities would rise, or when I needed to be in the front of the bunch, or I could. It was a tense day. It was very windy. Race radio. Each rider is connected with their team and their sports director, and it was breaking and coming back together, and all the sports directors were nervous. And it's going to go, and it's going to go, and when everyone knows it's going to go, it never goes. And so the bunch had finally just given up, and we seemed content to go to the sprint. And I can remember there was this lull in the pace, and we turned right, and it just clicked. And I just said, opened my radio and said, go. Go, 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 go. And then the trust that obviously I had in the team, they just put their heads down, and it broke 10 seconds later. And it was became quite a famous stage, because the journalists started talking about the fact that HTC or the team had given a hint to Lance Armstrong, which was just not the case. In those such fast decisions, it's just go. You don't have time to avert anyone or anything like that. So Lance was just there. He just happened to be attached, and it became a very famous stage of the Tour de France.
Another famous one where you did the same thing was 2013 to Saint-Amand, I think it was, and you were with Alberto Contador then, and it was 90 kilometres to go.
How do you remember that? That's just, you remember all the town names, you remember all the kilometres?
But I'm right.
You are right, yeah.
And you had Matteo Tozzato, you had Nico Roach at the front, and it was to try and get time on Chris Froome.
It was a very, very, very similar scenario. It was going to go eventually. Everyone was tired. Again, it's just that sixth sense. I took a look around, saw the riders. They were, all on the edge, and it's just a look at a teammate, nod at the head, nothing was said. And I said, now's the time. And we broke it again, so yeah.
And you took a minute on Alberto Contador. Alejandro Valverde lost 3 minutes. Mark Cavendish was in the group, and he won the sprint ahead of Peter Sagan.
Yeah.
It was a pretty good day.
Well, I'd been in teammates with all of them, and I guess they knew I had a knack for picking the right moment in wins, so...
Watch Mick. Because the year before was 2012, and you were on Team Sky. Actually, can you remember when you first joined the Pro Peloton, the position of English-speaking riders? There weren't a lot of them that were super successful. That was the rarity, yeah?
Yeah, I'd say so.
Okay, so 2012, you're on Team Sky. Cadel Evans is the defending champion from the Tour de France. You go to the Criterium de Dauphiné. The top 4 is Bradley Wiggins, Michael Rogers, Cadel Evans, Chris Froome, 4 English-speaking riders. Was that a moment for you?
Well, I mean, I passed as professional towards the end of 2000. I did the Sydney Olympics. The day after, I flew from Sydney. I think I was 19. I flew to Europe. I'd obviously been in Europe already for a few years, but I returned to Europe, turned professional the day after. English speakers were very far and few between. In fact, I had to learn Italian. Luckily, I met my girlfriend and now wife, who was Italian, so it was amazing.
That motivated you?
I learned Italian in about a month. But you're absolutely right. You know, English speakers were very far and few between. I can only just imagine, you know, some of the riders that motivated my generation: Neil Stevens, Phil Anderson, Alan Piper, Stephen Hodge. I mean, they had no English riders, and they had to really insert themselves into European culture, whether it was French, whether it was Belgian, whether it was Spanish. I think they're the real heroes of our sport for the Australian riders, because they opened a pathway, they opened the door for Australian cyclists. And in my generation, we opened that door even more, and look at just the fantastic talent that we have now in the peloton. I mean, they're doing bigger and greater things than we ever did.
Okay, the Tour de France 2012, Team Sky, Froome and Wiggins, and you're the team captain. You're amongst friends. What was the relationship like between Wiggo and Froomey?
Shit, yeah.
How did you manage it?
You know, it was tricky. I'll get on to another story about Cav and Bernie Eisel, because it was tricky, because we had general classification goals, which was to win the Tour de France with Bradley, and there was a very clear orders from the team, which was everything needs to go to Bradley. But at the same time, we had Mark, who was world champion, who obviously wanted to win stages. I mean, best sprinter in the world, heads and shoulders above anyone else. And there was this one particular day, and maybe you know the day, but I can't remember what stage number it was.
It was a Wednesday, yeah?
Huh? It was in between the Alps and the Pyrenees, and we already had the yellow jersey. I was trying to save the troops, you know, for the Pyrenees, and I didn't want to, you know, be in the position to be able to pull the bunch the whole day and spend a lot of energy, because we wanted to keep some energy in reserve for the Pyrenees. And I was quite happy to let the break go, and so eventually, after an hour of attacks, the break goes away. It's 5 minutes. Perfectly flat stage, beautiful stage for Mark, and you know, we're happy. You know, the break is gone, the bunch is starting to settle down, and Mark comes to me and said, "I want to go for the stage," and I was just like, "No, you know, we're saving our energy today." And I know Mark, when he looks at me with those eyes and said, "No, we're going to close the stage. You know, we want the stage," and I said, looked at him with my eyes and said, "No, we're not chasing today." Mark spoke to me again about 3 years later. That was yeah. So I mean, some pretty intense moments, and now, you know, happy to tell those stories. But
Great way to avoid the question about Bradley Wiggins and Chris Froome, by the way. Clearly, it was a pretty poor relationship. It must have been super tense.
Of course. I mean, putting, you know, a bunch of young males in a room. I mean, we were kids. Kids. I mean, we were still in our 20s. I was a bit older than them guys. But it's hard. It's hard to manage a group of such exceptional athletes, because the upside is just so much, you know, so high. Any of those guys winning a stage, winning the Tour de France, I mean, it changes your life. And to be able to manage that on a serious note, but it's really hard. And Yeah, I think it's normal that a group of young males in their 20s become competitive. And, lucky I had a bit more maturity than them to be able to manage it.
To try and manage it. I'm going to open it up to the floor for questions. We've got a pair of Oakleys up for grabs as always, but I'm going to ask you one more question so there's a bit of thinking time out there. So the end, you're not aware of this next question that's coming, by the way. So the end of the 2012 Tour de France, that finishes on a Sunday, and then the Monday morning you were checking out of the hotel. You're not aware of the fact that I was standing about 5 metres behind you. And Bjarne Riis is in the hotel that day. And he came over to you and spoke to you as you were checking out. Was that the beginning of Bjarne Riis recruiting you to look after Alberto Contador?
No.
You were already in discussions.
No, I mean, that was a last minute change team. I mean, I was at end of contract. I was getting to the end of my career, and was no longer the up and comer. So the most talented and the youngest up and coming riders got to negotiate their contracts at the start of the year during the Tour de France at the time. And Bjarne actually reached out to me a couple of months after the Tour de France, and he had this idea to bring Alberto Contador to win the Tour. And so.
I think it was the beginning of Bjarne planting the seed to get
It could be.
I'd love to ask
be.
Bjarne Riis the question. I think we'd get a different answer. Anybody want to get us started with a question from the floor for Mick? All the way up the back. I'm going to test my running legs, see if I can make it. See if the microphone can make it as well. Come on, I'll meet you 3/4 of the way.
Yeah, Mick, good to see you. With regards to your current role, how do you think the UCI can make the World Tour safer?
Okay, Mick was working with the UCI. He's recently changed roles. He's now the GM of the women's team at Lidl Trek. So in your old role, how can we make racing safer?
How long have I got?
90 seconds.
No, it's. I don't know where to start. I mean, listen, race safety. It's a very, very complex topic. There's a lot of moving pieces here because you have, or what I should say, stakeholders is the official language. We have riders, we have race organisers, we have teams. Now. How a race functions and a disaster does not happen every day is just a miracle. It really is a miracle. You've got so many moving parts. You have a race organizer that has to adhere to a different set of regulations or a different police force. We ride on public roads that we have, in some countries, a rolling road closure like we do here in Australia. In France, obviously the Tour de France, they have the political power to shut down the whole roads for days. So it's a very complex thing. Very, very costly for the race organizer to remove every roundabout, remove every traffic island. I mean, we're talking about millions and millions and millions of dollars just to do that for one stage. We have riders that are going faster and faster, more technology, faster equipment, better clothing, more aerodynamics. So you have this perfect storm of higher speed and less reaction time. But I think to conclude here is that human behavior is the reason for a lot of these incidents. And I'm not saying riders' behavior, I'm saying human behavior, because it's sports directors, it's the teams, and human behavior is driven by incentives. So if there's an incentive to win a bike race, to earn more money, to whatever that incentive is, humans are going to take risks.
Yeah.
So it's a very, very complex topic, but I think the world of cycling is making great progress, I should say. I think the stakeholders are all at the table. They're starting to come up with solutions. so that's a very long answer to your question about how to fix safety in our sport. Yep.
Keen to get another question from the floor. We're coming to it. I'll go there and then I'll go there. For what it's worth, in F1 racing, in the 60s and 70s, there was multiple fatalities per year, and they did a lot of work to get it safer. The one response that I hate hearing in cycling, the sport's always been dangerous. Well, if F1 had that attitude, people would still be dying there. So we've got to keep working at it and try and get better. And I don't know what the solution is.
Mick, 2010 Giro d'Italia. Has any other rider got as much attention as yourself for having pulled over in the middle of a race and actually using a bathroom?
Sorry, can you repeat? I didn't get that.
In the Giro d'Italia, didn't you stop and go into a portaloo and use the bathroom?
Could have.
Or a restaurant? Or was it a restaurant? And did you get anything from the bar? You can't recall that one?
I didn't hunt thousands of race days. I can't remember all the details, yeah.
Mick, how are you doing? Peter Teschner.
Sorry?
Peter Teschner.
Hi, Peter. Yeah.
How you doing?
Yeah, good.
Mick, you still got the 2004...
I can't hear here. Can you...
Do you still have the 2004 time trial frame?
I do. Yeah.
Excellent news.
Yeah, yeah. Absolutely, I still have it.
Peter made the frame that Mick rode to win the 2004 World Championships.
Yeah.
This is the Mick Rogers reunion, everybody. Welcome to Adelaide. Question over here.
Thank you very much for giving me the opportunity. Can you describe your best stage and or tour win?
I think the Tour de France takes the cake. As I said earlier, I mean, I was a kid of the 80s. I grew up very fortunate enough to have, well, my mother's Dutch. My mother was born in Holland, moved out to Australia, I guess, in the 60s. I was a result of that. So I was fortunate enough that my mother's family would, and I'm going to show my age, would send us VHS tapes recorded in Holland and send them to my brothers and I in Australia. And we grew up watching the Tour de France on, you know, my brothers and I were very weird as I guess, as children, because after school, all the kids would go to the shopping centre. We'd rush back and watch Tour de France tapes on VHS.
And
so,
his two older brothers have also represented Australia at World Championships, and one of them was a world champion as well, so, you know, they just went for bike rides.
So we grew up watching, you know, instead of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, we were watching stage 17 of the, you know, 86 Tour de France. And just
Won by Bernard Hinault. No.
Of course. So yeah, the Tour de France has had a special place, I think, in my heart. Absolutely, that was the special one.
It was my favourite watching you. Next question.
When you were a pro rider, would you say you trained more during the off season or during the season?
When did I train more?
Yeah, did you train as a pro? Did you do more training in the off season or during the season? Keeping in mind that balance between training and racing.
Yeah, in the off season, because we were constantly racing, whether it was, you know, I remember the year that I did the most races in 1 year was 116 races in 1 year. So you're racing, you know, once every 3 days, and not riding in between. So.
All right, I'm going to close it out with one more question. Tell us about your role as the general manager of the women's team at Lidl Trek, a double barrel, and how excited you are about seeing your nephew Cameron ride for the development team and beat Filippo Ganna in a time trial last year at the Tour of Austria.
It's a new role I came into in September of last year. So this is my first race with the girls. We came down here with a good team. I wouldn't say our senior riders, but a bunch of young and energetic girls here. 3 Australians on the team. Obviously Amanda Spratt, who's no stranger to the Tour Down Under. A couple of other girls as well. I'm lucky enough to have 3 daughters, and so that gives me, I would say, a good experience to working with the women and working with managing the crying and all those things that happen. But jokes aside, great women. I mean, really looking forward to the challenge and particularly the growth in women's cycling these last couple of years. I mean, what the Tour de France, what races like the Tour Down Under have done for women's cycling is just beyond, I think, what anyone in cycling, would have expected. And it's so great to see them that they're on parity with the men now. What Team Little Trek does for our women is just amazing. They have very similar wage conditions. Minimum wage for the women is exactly the same for the women.
The Lead Trek team was the first team to have equal minimum wage between the men and the women,
yes.
and the first team to give a female athlete maternity leave, and they've done it twice.
Yep. If I can add to that, another detail that not many people know is if there's a non-parity in prize money, I'll give you an example. If there's a difference between the prize money for the women and the men's Tour Down Under, the team puts the difference. Yeah.
I didn't know that.
Yeah.
Last one for me, and you can take the manager hat off. How excited are you watching your nephew coming up through the ranks?
Well, Cameron, my nephew, so he's the son of my elder brother Peter. It's great. I get sick watching him, as if it was my own son. When you see them racing through the corners and taking all these risks, you're like, ooh, you close your eyes. But he's a young and up-and-coming athlete. He's just turned 20. He's got hopefully a bright future in front of him. Lots of talent, but in this sport, talent's not enough. He needs to work, and he's got all the opportunity in front of him, and if he can just follow the script, I'm sure he'll make it.
Well, I know your brother Peter, I know your brother Dean, I know you, and he's cut from the same cloth. I'm sure work ethic isn't going to be a problem because you're going to be a great role model for him in terms of work ethic. We've got to give away the glasses, and I'm going down there. You happy with that?
Sorry?
I've got to give away the sunglasses. I'm going down there in the blue shirt. You happy with that?
Yep.
Excellent. Here we go. I think you'll all agree with me. He's one of the most humble champions of Australian cycling. He's got a great CV, all those wins, Tour de France stage, Giro d'Italia. But watching him pick apart the Tour de France to be the captain on the road, be in that sandwich with Wiggins, Froome, Cavendish, Bernie Eisel, and he's the captain on the road. For Bjarne Riis to say, you come and work with us because we need somebody to take care of Alberto Contador. The wins are outstanding. 3 world titles, top 10 in the Tour, top 10 in the Giro, but it's the captain on the road that defined the career of Michael Rogers, affectionately known as Dodger. Let's give him one big round of applause. Michael Rogers.
Thank you very much. Enjoy.